Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking and welcome to another episode of Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats. And today I will be your host. And in this episode, this is slightly different to normal, but we're going to do some coverage on steam railways, reading about some steam railway history. This book, it's called Steam Railways, written by Anthony Lambert and forwarded by Christopher Audrey, who was the son of the author who did the Thomas the Tank Engine railway series, the Reverend Wilbert Audrey, which was done a very, very long time ago now, before I was born, as far as time could travel and all that. Oh my goodness me. Bye. But shall we get started with this little railway book? I've had this railway book since childhood, which my parents bought for me from a nice. Luckily, this was bought second hand. It wasn't bought in a bookshop. This was bought second hand during my childhood, and I'm pleased with it, I have to say. And let's give this a read. Steam railways. Steam Railways by Anthony Lambert. That's only representing like a forward map. We might not be able to see it properly when I just showed it. We shall read the forward part. Not very long ago, the railway was the only method of transport that the general public could use in order to reach the countryside. The growth of motor transport and the consequent contraction of the railway system have now made this less effective. But, almost as if in reaction, we find ourselves with a growing number of preserved lines, each trying to replicate the atmosphere of the heyday of the railways. Roads in holiday areas, particularly now, become so choked with traffic that the steam railway offers a welcome day away from them. Not only that, but the railways will often carry their passengers. I don't think any of them will call you a customer, not just for a ride, but in a leisurely and enjoyable way to the seaside, to a local beauty spot, or stately home, or to a tourist attraction of some sort. This book covers 40 of the best known lines, including the one on which my father and I cut our preservation teeth more than 40 years ago. The Tallyclin Railway then, as has often been told, was in a very run-down state. The rails held in place more by faith and the surrounding turf than by any mechanical means. Now it is a smart, friendly and well-run line, and it is a source of some pride to me that in 1994 my son began his guards training there as soon as he was legally old enough to do so. ours is not a unique story. For those first steps in preservation taken on the Llyn in the early 1950s have snowballed into what has become a major leisure market. 45 years on there are more than 200 steam centres dotted around the United Kingdom, most of them depending on volunteers for survival. Some are commercially orientated, others have more to offer in the way of extra attractions. What is not in doubt is that each railway has its own unique atmosphere, its own dedicated volunteers, and that each offers a chance to slow the pace of our hectic life for a while. Every railway within these pages can be recommended, and the variety they offer is remarkable. So sit back and enjoy this overview. When you've done that, why not sample a few of the lines for yourselves, relaxing as the scenery drifts past outside the carriage window, with just for once the train taking the strain. Steam railways are a major part of Britain's tourist industry. Each year, over 6.5 million passengers travel on them, and their combined turnover is about £15 million. Their appeal lies principally in the perennial fascination of the steam locomotive, which writers, painters, composers, and photographers have tried to express and explain since the first spirited eulogies were written about the iron horse in the early 19th century. Of course, there were those like Ruskin and Wordsworth who abhorred the steam locomotive and what railways were doing to the look of the country. But then they hadn't seen a motorway. Children are in no two minds about them. The popularity of Thomas the Tank Engine days on preserved railways, reflecting the unprecedented sales of the Reverend W. Awdry's books and associated merchandise. And for adults, the steam railway is associated perhaps with a time when there were more certainties and continuities in our lives than in today's ceaseless preoccupation with change. How did the idea of saving steam railways begin? Rather improbably, it started with a meeting in Birmingham called by the late R.T.C. Rolt in a letter to the Times, inviting anyone with a will to save the narrow-gauge Llyn Railway in Wales to be at the Imperial Hotel on a day in October of 1950. Enough people turned up, formed a committee, and the Llyn Railway Preservation Society was born. For an explanation of their motives, one can do no better than quote Rolt, arguably the most poetic writer, with a profound appreciation of the appeal of steam in the landscape, whether applied to railways, canals, or agriculture. for the romantic, the speed and power of the steam trains epitomizes the freedom and romance of travel, while the whole atmosphere of the railway is magic. The sulphurous echoing gloom of a great station at night, with signal lamps and other mysterious lights glowing and flickering over the intricate mesh of rails beyond the platform, faces where steam drifts and buffers clash. The hot summer's day somnolence of some remote country station, suddenly awakened to expectancy by the single beat of a bell in the signal box. The whine of the wind in telegraph wires on a lonely upland section as we wait to watch the passing of a northbound express. Yet at the same time, the classicist within us is aware that this romance is in fact the byproduct of order and discipline. Yet at the same time, one of the most successful feats of organization ever evolved by man. The steel rail is a symbol of disciplined movement, but that movement is itself ordered and controlled by a complex human and mechanical hierarchy which extends from the central control room to the loneliest line-side signal box, and which has made the railway the safest form of transport ever evolved. Whether or not they would have articulated their feelings in the way, Rolt did. Sufficient people, both as volunteers and as passengers, felt the same emotional and rational attachment to the steam railway as he did. Fortunately, the Tallyclin rescue was successful. Had the Tallyclin rescue bid failed, Britain might not have gone on to reclaim more preserved railways per square mile than any other country in the world. Its success encouraged others to tackle the first standard gauge railway, the Bluebell, in 1960, and soon schemes were springing up everywhere. Some were unrealistic, echoing the wilder fantasies of the mid-19th century railway manias. Others were soundly based and managed, but there were a few voices urging caution, suggesting that the cake was finite, and that every new scheme cut it more thinly. One reason for the proliferation of proposals was the attachment felt to particular pre-grouping or pre-nationalisation companies. Before the creation of British Railways in 1948, there were 4 large railway companies: the Great Western, London Midland and Scottish, London and North Eastern, and Southern. Each was distinctive in character, locomotive and rolling stock liveries, and in the areas they served. They had been created in 1922 by the government's decreed grouping of over 140 railways of very different size into the Big Four, as the post-grouping companies were called. The first phase of railway preservation was often concerned to recreate the ambience of one of these companies. Another reason was the desire to have a local preserved railway, as opposed to the one in the next county. Sometimes the ambition has been simply to cover costs and fund repairs, but most preserved railways have had to develop an increasingly professional outlook, becoming significant businesses in the local economy of smaller towns. Most have had to dilute the early ideal of volunteer labour with a nucleus of paid staff, particularly to cope with locomotive maintenance and driving. We shall leave it at here with the introduction for now. The introduction is almost complete, but once the introduction is gone, we will, in the future from time to time, cover some of the preserved steam railways this book has the representing presentations for whenever reading about them, I would say. It certainly does have a great representing presentation about the British Steam Railways, this book. Oh yes. Okay. But thanks everybody for watching this video. We will cover reading more stuff in this book, reading about the steam railways. Each part of the book's contents would represent, and all the rest of it. Thanks everybody for watching, and I shall certainly see you in the very next video. Ta-ta, another time. From Foxy.